Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Monday, the first day of the month of July 2024, Monday of the 13th week of the year, the 13th week in Ordinary Time. It is also on the universal calendar an optional memorial, but it is for Franciscans the memorial of St. Junípero Serra, the founder of the California missions, the great evangelizer, the great one who brought Christianity to Mexico, to the Baja Peninsula, and to California eventually. A very controversial figure. Against somebody who is often criticized for destroying entire indigenous cultures of people, was not always very friendly. There may have been a couple of forced baptisms within all of this, but again, in the midst of all of that, the faith was established here, still not without its problems, not without its challenges, still not without its need to sort of kind of reconcile some of the things that it did. And so we still, in remembering him, also remember again what was done and what was failed to be done. An interesting kind of thing again, the state of California, perhaps one, how it embraces Christianity is perhaps very different than the way Junípero would have imagined it to be embraced. But like Maryland, again, a Catholic state, here you have also California cannot be forgotten that it was also a Catholic state, a Christian state. Again, or at least an area, again, as it becomes part of the United States. But in order to celebrate Junípero, I came all the way to California, to Mission Santa Barbara, the queen of the missions, here in, right north of Los Angeles. If you've ever been to Santa Barbara, there was a soap opera that was done about it. Nestled between the Santa Ynez Mountains over there, and far in distance is the Pacific. The marine layer is out a little bit, so we're the clouds over there. But Mission Santa Barbara, founded not necessarily by Serra, by one of his followers, Lasuen, who also founded the king of the missions, San Luis Rey in Oceanside, where the Franciscan School of Theology was before it moved to the University of San Diego. Wonderful mission architecture, the friary that goes off onto the side over there. The reason why I am here is not just to celebrate Junípero Serra, but it's also to be a part, to be the MC for the simple vows, the first vows of our Franciscan brothers, Daniel and Richard, because it is that time of the year for them after completing novitiate. Novitiate also happens here at Mission Santa Barbara, and so this is they'll be taking their first vows as friars. So I do a lot of emceeing in Raleigh with our diocesan things. It's kind of nice to do an emceeing for us as friars, and it is fantastic weather. It is. You have a microclimate here, so there is no humidity. It is not 110 degrees in the shade. It is just wonderful and beautiful. So it is good to be here. It's good to be here. So after all of that introduction with the Pacific in the background, what is today? Today we move to the prophet Amos, and the prophet Amos basically who says, who God speaks through, basically to tell Israel that they need to clean up their act. So again, after all of the destruction, all of the sadness that has taken place within Israel and with the fall of Jerusalem and everything else like that, we now come back to Amos. And now Amos is preaching during the kingdom of Judah, and so he is again trying to call Israel back. But again, Israel says that he is not going. God says that he's not going to go back on his punishments that he's going to allow Israel to experience, because they do all these terrible things. Again, it's like involving themselves, with prostitutes and worshiping gods and not caring about each other and stepping on the poor and the lowly and not doing any of those kinds of things that sort of obey the commandments and that allow the commandments to take flesh and take shape in their lives. And so basically there will be no happiness. There will be no way to flee from the misfortunes that will come. And again, misfortunes that not only God necessarily is not giving, but misfortunes that basically are the result of Israel's unfaithfulness and its fear and its inability to live, the gospel life. And because of all of that, Israel will begin to suffer. And again, this is what happens. When again you don't look at what is good in front of you. You don't look at what is good, in your midst, and you basically decide, to follow false things and things that don't give hope, even though they promise it, that don't give life, even though they say they do, that do not give the welfare and the goodness of ourselves that we need to have in our lives, because they can't. And so matched with this then is Matthew's gospel, in which a scribe wants to follow Jesus, and Jesus' response to that is, the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. no place to stay. And if somebody says, I'd like to follow you, but first let me bury my father. And Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead. And again, it might seem it's all insensitive with Jesus, or that he's trying to throw away followers, whatever it is. But the idea is always that it takes risk to believe any of this. It's a dare to believe any of this. It's a dare to follow Christ. It's a dare to move in the directions that Christ asks us to move. It is not to be taken lightly. It can never be taken lightly. There has to be a seriousness to it, that allows it to flourish in our lives. Know what we are saying, I do too, whenever we, proclaim our faith. Know what we are denying when we proclaim our faith. Know what it is that we are embracing when we proclaim our faith, that we may see the wonder and glory of God alive in our midst. Tomorrow, our Franciscan brothers will make their first vows within the order. I ask you to keep them in their prayers, Daniel and Richard, and may the Lord give you his peace.